I'll suggest make your evening meal plant-based. You don't have to become a vegan overnight. I don't even recommend that. Just make your evening meal plant-based. With commitment, from now on, my evening meals are plant-based. That's how I live. And I meditate every day as long as I can, plus 5 minutes. So we're doing it, and you get this synergy of change your diet, cut down on your social media by a third, increase your meditation, and exercise too, which we haven't talked on today. We don't really have time for that. But just in one sentence, exercise is a very important part of our emotional and spiritual development. So I'm encouraging people to get outside, get some sunshine, get some fresh air, then sit down and meditate. Then have a plant-based meal, and you will see benefits.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spiritual Forum. I'm so glad you're here. I just want to introduce my guest in a minute, but before I do that, I just want you to consider, are you being called up to a higher level of being, of consciousness, where you want to create a world that works for all beings on the planet? And if so, I invite you to consider coming to my retreat this October at Unity Village. And it's called a Whole Planet Spirituality Retreat. And our theme is Homo Ahimsa Rising. And the idea of this is ahimsa is a Sanskrit word, which means like non-harm, non-violence, and reverence for all life. And this, I believe, is what we are evolving to. So we will be gathering at Unity Village this October 16th through 19th to connect and collaborate and to work on ourselves so that we can be the most peaceful, loving people on the planet as we co-create a world that works for all beings. So you can learn more at thespiritualforum.org/retreat. This is an annual retreat, and every year I have some podcast listeners come, so we'll all be in community together. Thank you for that. And now let me introduce you to my guest. Thomas Radzienda has been living in Thailand since 1992. He taught poetry and culture at university in Bangkok for 12 years before dedicating his attention to spiritual development, nutrition, and healing. He's been helping people heal and develop themselves with Reiki, meditation, and whole life health practices since 2008. He's the author of several books, including Personal Transformation Through Reiki, and most recently, Vegan Health and Spirituality. Welcome, Tom.
Hello, Carol. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. Really glad to be with you. And our technology is working well, so we have a proper conversation.
It took us about a half hour to get it going. And you're my second guest from Thailand. I just always think it's amazing when I can talk to somebody who's 12 hours ahead of me.
How
And
about
that's
it?
the amazing thing about technology, that you're in Thailand, I'm in Wisconsin, and here we are having this conversation. So there's good things and bad things about technology.
Yes, yes. And we need to be very circumspect about both the very, very good and very, very bad. And we just have to be wise enough to know when to use it, when to avoid it.
Yeah, we'll be getting into that because you really cover that a lot in your book. I really appreciate
Indeed.
that. But first, you agreed to do a couple of rapid fire questions so that we can get to know Tom Radzienda a little bit better. Um, so first, what's your favorite thing about living in Thailand?
Oh my God, everything. But the simplest answer would be I say people and the food. Because if I said the food first, that would be a Thai answer. But I'm here. It's the Thai people. I really am very much in tune with Thai people and the culture in general. And anybody who enjoys food knows that Thai cuisine is spectacular. So those are the two main things that keep us here.
Completely get that. I love Thai food. And actually, that's kind of the same answer I have about what's special about my retreat. Well, it's the people and the food.
That's what we live for.
We do. We do. It's important. Okay, this is a little more complex, but I think you've got an answer
Okay.
for it. Spirituality means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. How do you define spirituality or the spiritual path?
Really difficult. Actually, the preface to the book, I talk about that. And when you're writing a book for an audience of thousands, I cannot just go in with my fixed definition, realizing all of us have some variations on what spirituality means. One way to look at it that I think everybody might be able to agree with is it's not materialism, which means I'm not into, the big house or the fast new car or wealth or luxury type of items, the material world. The spirituality, I think, in a general sense, is it's those intrinsic characteristics within us. And for my own spiritual path, it's looking in, generally looking for silence, trying to understand consciousness. What is it? Maybe where is it? Is that what I am? Or is that what God is? Or is that what the universe is? So it's those types of questions which they're rather rhetorical because after 25 years, I really can't answer it. Yet peering into the silence within is the spirituality that I work with.
Yeah, that's really interesting answer. I don't know if you know anything about Unity. I'm a Unity minister, but Charles Fillmore, who was one of the
Mm,
co-founders of Unity, was really all about the silence and entering into the silence, and that's where everything, and also nothing happens. It's like where everything expands, right?
yes, well put. Everything, and in Buddhist terms, it's emptiness.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
emptiness. There's nothing there yet. That is our essence,
Yeah, and it
which
seems
is
like you've pretty well mastered that, which I'm sure we'll get into. All right, so last, if you're like in an elevator and just had a brief period of time to explain to the people in the elevator with you what your message is, what would you say?
yeah, it would depend which elevator that was. But I can give it the nutshell. Is my book is written to inspire vegans to pursue other aspects of spirituality and health. And for people who are pre-vegan or non-vegan, but they see themselves on a spiritual path, I want to inspire them to understand how the eating of animal products greatly damages our spirituality as well as our physical health. So it's actually bringing people from both sides of the aisle to say, hey, can you cross over? If you're vegan, spirituality is going to be very, very helpful for you. And if you're spiritual, veganism will be very, very helpful for you.
It's wonderful. I can't wait to get into that because both of those messages are so important. And
Hmm.
the vegan movement is, well, to me, it is a spiritual movement, but it isn't to a lot of vegans. So we'll get into that. Okay, so Tom, thank you for that. Let's hear a little bit about your background and how you came to live in Thailand and how you came to pursue this very deep and profound spiritual path that you're on.
That's a big question with a long answer. If,
We'll hit the high points.
well, I can look back to, although this comes very late in the book, the last couple of chapters, when I realized where did this story begin? It goes back to the mid 80s. And I was just, I was a technical manager working for a corporation in Chicago. I had a new car and fancy suit and, all that material stuff. And I happened to join a program that involved literacy training for adults living in Chicago. And I thought, how can that be? Chicago is a highly developed city. How can there be uneducated people? And sure enough, there were millions and millions of people. And I met this guy. His name was Andrew. This going back, almost 40 years ago. And purportedly, I was going to be helping him learn to read and write. And normally we would speak for like 10 minutes looking at the book. And he thought, like, Tom, I just can't handle it. This was very eye-opening for me because I never sat across the table from somebody who did not have the opportunities that I grew up with. Stable family, and yes, we went to school, and I got into college, and I had these skills, I could get work. But meeting Andrew, he didn't have all that stuff. But what he had was this absolute warmth, this absolute simplicity about him, which and we learned, I'd be sitting there in a suit and a tie and Mr. Professional. And Andrew would be just sitting there. It's like, such a regular guy. I thought, he has something intrinsically that really opened me up to start looking to what's this world all about? It's not all of us, technical people and managers and, making money and all that. There's got to be more. And within a couple of years, that was around 86, 87. By 89, I made my decision that I'm going to leave my corporate job and I'm going to leave my house, sell my car, leave the country, and go traveling around the world. So that took me to Europe for a year and a half. And by that time, I realized it wasn't just the American culture that was holding me back. That something was not quite right in American culture for me. I just thought that there's got to be something more, and there's got to be something not quite right. If you look back to the political scene in 89, 90, 91, the military is quite busy bombing people in the Middle East. Surprise, surprise, because it happens again and again every
Still
decade.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard all of my colleagues just like rah, rah, rah. And I thought, I must be odd, but I don't support killing other people. Now, I was not vegetarian at the time. I was just, I ate what everybody else ate around me, animal products, vegetables, junk food, and everything else. And that helped trigger, no pun intended, trigger me to, I'm going to leave the country and I'm going to find out for myself what this world is about. So I did a master's degree at University of Sussex in Brighton in the south of England. That was very eye-opening, meeting people from around the world with hundreds of different perspectives on things that were not within the what I would call the American coconut. You have your
Mm,
left and your right, but it's like, yeah, but we're still at war. Doesn't matter who the
mm,
president is or the congressperson is.
mm.
We're still bombing people. And when you start meeting lots of people from Europe and Asia, it's like, wait a minute, something's still not quite right. During that time, early 90s, I realized I really can't go back to the United States. It's not wholesome. It's not nourishing. I thought, well, logically, let's go somewhere else. So I went to Egypt, and that was mind blowing. This is, of course, pre-internet and pre-GPS, and you have an address scribble on a napkin. Okay, find that. But it was so eye-opening traveling Egypt, and then I flew into India, Pakistan, Nepal, and just a world of experiences. Not necessarily spiritual in the sense that I hung out at ashrams or hung out with gurus, but it was eye-opening to see this is how the world is. This is how the masses live. The billions and billions of people who are not middle class guys like me, working for a corporation, getting their degree, driving expensive cars. This is reality. And so many little anecdotes, so many little vignettes of experience just opened my eyes. Whether it was in Egypt or in Pakistan, the poorest, most broken people would reach out to me with a cup of tea or pay for my lunch. And it might only be a rupee or two, but it's like, why are these people so kind and so open to some stranger? And this really warmed me up to Asia. I eventually I landed in Thailand. I got here in '92, very exhausted, very sick, and very broke. I thought, okay, I need to settle down for a little while, and I did. I was in Bangkok and lived in Bangkok for overall more than 20 years. But after about a year, I thought, I'm not going to fly back to the United States. My scholarship for a PhD program didn't come through. I thought, I've got a job. Why don't I just stay here, learn the Thai language, start developing more friendships? So 6 months in Thailand have turned into 33, 34 years, whatever. I guess about 34 years now, or 33 years, something like that. From 6 months to
Wow.
32 years.
Wow. I find these stories so interesting when there is a pattern of people who are on a deep spiritual path. Most of them have
Mhm.
left this corporate thing that
Yes.
they were deeply into the material and had the car and the house and the everything. And then something happens and they reject it. not everybody, but it's very, very common as part of the people who have got on the deep spiritual path. And I just find that fascinating because to me, it seems like it takes so much courage to just let it all go. And then, obviously you have to have money to be able to, get your ticket to Europe and Egypt and all that kind of stuff. But to
Indeed.
just be on this adventure, because the material world is always just, it's like a very deep gravity. It's always just kind of like pulling us pulling us back to it everywhere. And so to be able to, you have to have like an escape velocity, like, like the spacecraft to be able to leave the gravity of the earth. You have to be able to have some enough courage or enough wisdom or enough something to be able to kind of escape this material pullback. So I'm always really in awe and amazed at that part of the journey.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, if I want to take credit, I'll say, yes, Tom, you have courage. Or you're such a fool. And I got this response from one friend, and I had mentioned it to them. It's like, I have a one-way ticket to Budapest. And I was excited. It's like, this is like Mr. Adventure. I was 28 years old. And she said, what are you going to do in Budapest? That's not the I'm going around the world in Budapest. I happen to have a friend there, so I'm going to get started. Somebody picked me up from the airport, and everything else for the last 34 years, I've just figured it out on my feet. So
Yeah, that's
it's
amazing.
the ability to buy a one-way ticket, which I've repeated this numerous times over the years, where I buy a one-way ticket and I'll land on my feet. And yes, there's enough money in the bank. I know I can go a year. I have plenty of money in the bank. I'm strong. I was much
Yeah.
younger at the time, so I had the courage that I'll work it out. And that has been, yeah. You get horror stories come up. Being so sick here, getting robbed there, terribly lost. What are you going to do? You sort it all out, and somehow you're building character, which is why I have white hair. from character building for the last 30 some years.
Yeah, well, you earned it.
I
Okay, so
suppose so.
let's get into the essence of veganism and spirituality and health. And I started off by saying that uh, the vegan movement has been split, I think, for a long time in many ways. And I think it got even more split during the COVID years. But there's the kind of the atheist vegans, the ones that have completely rejected God, religion, anything spiritual. And in a way, they're kind of in the material world because they've rejected all of that. And it's like, I think it's because religions have been so offensive to so many vegans about animals. And so it's a complete, I'm not that at all. And then there's the spiritual vegans. Like me, it's like to me, the movement is about love and peace. 100%.
Mhm.
That's what it is. We just include the animals in love and peace. It's not just about the animals, it's about being universal love and being inner and outer peace and expanding that to not stop at the interface between animals and humans, but to go beyond and include everyone. So let's talk about spirituality and how it relates to veganism as a start.
Well, they may be coming at it from two different directions. If you notice in the book, for a certain percentage of the time, I'm talking about plant-based. And I use that term in the nutritional sense. So if somebody's having health problems, whether it be their weight or their blood pressure or disease, then we talk about plant-based diet. And strictly in nutritional terms, we are much healthier in just about every way of measuring physical health. We can add to that, we are also going to be healthier with emotional health. So even if a person is not necessarily spiritual, going to the Himalayas and meditating in a cave, you don't have to do that. But we are all emotional beings. So veganism, by giving us a more alkaline diet, a much easier, the food is much easier to digest. There's no violence embedded within the food. So it's more nutritious. In yogic terms, it's more sattvic. Okay, it's more calming and cooling. And that helps us, whether we're talking about our emotional or our spiritual well being. The other part of that is for spiritual people, whether it's a Christian who says, I'm very spiritual, or a Buddhist, would be the two cultures that I'm most familiar with, having grown up in Chicago around a lot of Christians and living here in Thailand for more than half my life. Most of us are Buddhist here. But most of those people who say they are spiritual continue to eat animals, and they have so many reasons to do that. Sometimes actually using the religious text to justify the consumption of animal products, which is mind-boggling, but we encounter it all the time. So it's, bringing together these very important things. And anybody who says, I don't want all that spiritual BS, fine. You can meditate without being a Buddhist, without shaving your hair, without having, you can love God without having a rosary. You can have more of a secular spirituality. And in my terms, that would be the cultivation of whatever is deepest within human essence. To me, that is spirituality.
Yeah, there's so many ways I can go from what you just said. I think what I want to focus on right now is the health aspect and the physical aspect, because to me, there's a lot of pushback on veganism. I feel like there's more than there has been in the past. And a lot of people think, I need my meat. And I table every year at my Unity convention, and I table to promote my retreat, but also just this ahimsa living, this universal compassion living, and including the animals. And by the way, our founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, they were ethical vegetarians in the
Yes.
early 1900s, and it was
How
amazing.
about it?
Amazing. I mean, they had a food company, they had a vegetarian restaurant, they bound their Bibles in a non-leather alternative, a leather alternative, way back then. So that's kind of in our roots, but people have definitely pulled away from it, like they have, I think, in Christianity versus early Christianity. But I always run into people saying, "Oh gosh, thank you so much for doing this for the animals. I think it's just really great. Unfortunately, my body needs meat. And my doctor even said that I don't have my pancreas doesn't excrete the right enzymes for vegetables. And so therefore I have to eat meat." And I'm just like dumbfounded. I'm like, how can our biology be that? I don't even know what to say at that point, because I don't want to sit there and go, maybe you should try another doctor. But what is that about? What is it about when people say I need meat? You may be fine on a vegan or vegetarian diet, but I need it for my health. What do you think? How are we designed?
Well, biologically, we are herbivores. And if we look at just about any part of our anatomy, from our eyes to I have canines. Yeah, I have canines. People still say that, to our esophagus, our stomach, our intestines, our elimination system, as well as our psychological standpoint of it's like, okay, if you're truly a carnivore, there's a bird over there. Catch it. We can't. I'm not quick enough. Let's say we do catch a rabbit. Kill it now with your bare hands and eat it raw. But now I'm being hyperbolic, and people will say, "Oh, that's gross. That's not what I meant." So we're not going to win an argument. The moment we start an argument, we have lost. Not in the personal sense, but inspiring people to go plant-based or to go vegan. If we get into an argument, it's like people are putting up defenses. Carrots have feelings too. And it's like, yes, they do. So continue. Tell me about the feelings of a carrot. And it's like, so is there any difference between a carrot and a cow? So we have to be very mindful. So if we could take this approach is for vegan advocates, the more mindful we are to when other people say, where do you get your protein? Carrots have feelings too. My pancreas cannot digest things. We very patiently hear that, listen to it, and try to understand at the deepest level, what are they really trying to say? Are they maybe saying, I feel threatened by your vegan message? Are you telling me that my parents and my grandparents and all of us are dead wrong about this? Are you telling me my doctor with 12 years experience is wrong? The research will show that, yeah, vegan diet is the healthiest diet. Coming back to the point you made earlier, Carol, how much education do these doctors have in nutrition? And it's pretty close to zero. And if it's not zero, it's one course over the course of many, many years. So as you see, when I write in the book, and I bring up the topic of many different doctors, like doctors are not educated to prescribe food. They're there, and this is quite strong because I have friends who I really love who are doctors, but most doctors, or let me say the medical system, is there to sell drugs. And we sell the drugs until they don't work, and then we sell you surgery. And after surgery, of course, you'll need a lifetime of drugs. So the medical profession, many parts of the world, in many ways, has been totally co-opted by the selling of pharmaceuticals and procedures. And you'll notice this at any time you get in a conversation, nearly any time, the doctor will say, I don't know about that. They're not educated in that. The same as if you ask me, how to, put a set of rings in a Honda. Like, ask my brother. I don't know how to put new rings in. I'm not sure if Hondas still have rings in them. I don't know. It's like asking the doctor. It's like, is broccoli good for me? The doctor doesn't know. If he or she is a nutritionist, they have been educated within a carnist society. Going back a good 100 years, when milk and cow products and eggs or chicken products were being propagandized, how much we need them. And our grandparents learned that, our parents learned that, our generation has learned this. We are so deeply inculcated into the eating of animal products that to take that away is like to pull the carpet out from somebody's entire life. You're not just wrong about one little detail. It's upending a person's entire existence. What do you do at Thanksgiving? Go to grandma's and eat turkey. What about for Christmas? You go to aunt and uncle's house and you have, they will call it ham. I'll call it, pig. But we call it ham and we dress it up. And that's it. We dress it up. We obscure what it really is with flavorings and seasonings and with euphemisms. It's a Christmas ham. What is it really? Well, it's the butt of a dead pig. How can you say that in front of your grandmother? So it's culturally taboo up until now, the last, 25, 30 years, we're speaking up more and more about it.
Yeah, I completely get that. You also make a point in your book. Well, you also made your point here too. We say we have canines. I get this all the time. We have canines. It's like, where are they?
Yeah.
They're just called canines, but they're really not. But everything about our nature, like we wouldn't eat these animal parts if they weren't cooked. And so we go back to primitive man, like even before fire. It's obviously not like our original diet. And are you Buddhist? Are you a Buddhist yourself?
I I would say I practice a lot of Buddhist things, and
Okay.
I've been able to learn a great deal of wisdom from Buddhists. But
Okay.
to say
Yeah.
that I'm a member of the Buddhist temple, no, I'm not a member,
Okay.
because that would be religious.
I get
And
it.
I
I get
don't
it.
want to go, I don't want to go that way.
I get it. I was just going to point to the Christian Judeo scriptures because, like Genesis, whether you believe these are actual, factual, literal stories or not, it's just so interesting that in Genesis, it's just clear that the God that everybody believes in, whether that's external or within us, created us to be in harmony with all of the plant and animal world. It was created to take care of the animals and to eat plants and seeds and nuts. It's very, very clear. And all of the Christians and Jews that I know don't look at that part of the Bible. They look at another part. And I
Mhm.
just feel like there's some reason for that, that it makes so much sense that that's our nature. So that's our physical nature. And then there's this
Mhm.
other part of us that is our emotional and spiritual nature. Can you speak to that a little bit too? How it is, how our nature is in relating to animals, what's natural for us.
Well, the only thing that really comes to mind is if you were to take an infant and give them the opportunity to pick up, let's say, an apple or an orange or a squirrel or a bird, and see which one they pick up and stick in their mouth. Of course, this doesn't prove anything. There's no science behind that. It's just much more intuitive. And so anybody who is really looking to attack veganism or go against it, they're going to be looking for some sort of a science. And it's like, I know that I do not have the psychology to hurt anybody or anything, with the possible exception of mosquitoes. Oh my God, a vegan killed a mosquito. Evil. I should be hung. I say, well, give me a little bit of break. Give me a little bit of leeway here. If we're anything larger than that, I just, I just know I can't do it. Now I know some people can. Some people can take a chicken and
Mhm.
cut the head off. Some people can take a gun and shoot it through the heart of a deer. Some people have that. They've been trained to do that by dad or grandpa. So that is a very, very powerful tribal connection. My father taught me how to shoot that gun. Are you saying my father was wrong?
I think it's a trauma bond. I think it's a trauma bond. Like
Interesting.
everybody who has learned that from my father, my uncle, my grandfather, we all have this traumatic experience that we've put into our unconscious mind,
Yeah.
but we get together and we share this trauma in common and we continually repeat it. So anyway, it's just a thought.
Yes, yeah, interesting. That's a good phrase that you put on there. Now I'm not gonna. I don't try to talk to hunters and get them to change, with the exception of my brother, who has done it, and he knows I've been vegan for all these years,
Yeah.
and he always, and I honestly think he has cut down a lot to his credit. So that's really cool. But it's the average person. Like I was in Bangkok on a trip a couple of weeks ago, and I met this woman, a very firm Buddhist. And she had all the scripture like memorized from Theravada, the Thai system of Buddhism. And she went through the gamut of things. Carrots have feelings too. Like, okay. And I said, so if you're really a carnivore, then let's go out and catch a bird and bite its head off like a cat would do, a known carnivore, or a dog. A dog would pounce on a bird or a chicken. A cat would pounce on a mouse or a mole, something like that. And they have the psychological wherewithal to do that. Maybe in the book I wrote somewhere, it's like, okay, if you're a carnivore, then do this. Next time you see a roadkill, pull off to the side of the road, park the car, put on your blinkers, get out your napkin, and go and eat that bloody carcass while it's still warm. This is gross. And this is why I put it later in the book, not chapter one. It's like, oh my God, Tom, you're gross. I put it, 40 chapters in, but I'm still trying to inspire people to realize you don't have the guts to do that because you're not a carnivore. And so if you see a roadkill, I know what you probably do, Carol. You probably think in your heart, may you be at peace. Around here, it's cats and dogs. We often see dogs killed on the side of the road. Here in Wisconsin, it might be more a beaver or more wild animals, wolves, things
Dear.
like
Yeah.
deer. And it's heartbreaking. And I see dogs quite often on our highways around here. Like, okay, I have to let that go. I have to send a real quick blessing because I'm driving, 100 kilometers per hour. A quick blessing. I don't close my eyes and may love be with. No, I keep my eyes on the road. Send a quick blessing, and I think all of us feel that. So here's a challenge we can throw out. If somebody's driving down the road and a chicken runs in front of the car, you'd hit the brakes as quickly as you safely could. You wouldn't want to cause an accident, but if you could, you'd slam on your brakes. You wouldn't hit a chicken. And you say, oh my God, that was close. And then you go down to the shopping mall, you go up to the fourth floor, and you're in the food court. And it's like, I'll have the fried chicken with French fries. And there's no cognitive dissonance. They don't see that. You would really, really jam on your brakes and apologize to your passengers. Sorry, a chicken crossed the road. Now, this example, I live in rural Thailand, so I see like 1,000 chickens, 1,000 dogs, and 1,000 cows walking down the street all the time. So my example comes from rural Thailand. But anybody in rural Wisconsin, there must be some animals running around, and a deer, right? A deer is a very large animal, and it would be mutually dangerous to hit them. But even if you clipped a deer, you'd feel heartbroken. It's like,
Oh,
oh my
yeah.
God, I just hit a fawn or whatever. You'd be heartbroken. And this is the proof that I would see. Most of us would be heartbroken if we hit a fawn or a doe or a buck for that matter at 40 miles per hour. Even just knock that and it limped away. The more sensitive of us would be in tears. Oh my God, it's going to be okay. What do we do? Can we, you don't call 911, you call the wildlife service. What do we do? You'd be heartbroken. If that's not proof enough, do what you want.
I think,
There's no
yeah, I
point in
think it is
talking
our
further.
nature. Yeah, I think
It's
generally
our
speaking,
nature.
it is our nature, and that everything else is conditioning. And for me,
Yes.
the spiritual path is really focused on releasing conditioning,
Mm,
releasing beliefs that don't serve you, but just also releasing, look at all of the conditioning since we were first set foot in school or from our parents. And not that all of it's wrong, but question all of it and start over and ask yourself, does this even make sense with who I am? And then releasing that conditioning when everybody else is buying into it can be it's a hero's journey. It's an
mm,
arduous journey because there's so much pressure from our communities and our families and the culture at large to not change. But change happens with just a handful of people making changes. And to me, that's what the spiritual path is really about, is leading that change, which leads me to the 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 spiritual among us who cannot see, who have a reverence for life and all of that,
mhm,
but cannot see that what we're doing to the animals is in opposition to the belief in peace and universal love
mhm.
and all of that. And so what is going on there when the highly spiritually minded can't see this?
It's very challenging. And if any of us have ever had that conversation, it, we have to be terribly mindful, extremely patient. The direct answer to it, I think, is ego. Because if we say to you, Carol, you're wrong. Tom, you're wrong. Come on. I'm a
Yeah.
smart person. You're a smart woman. And we're going to do everything to wiggle out of the fact that we are complicit in the killing of innocent beings. Even in a spiritual sense. Now, I have a friend. He worked at an embassy for many years, and he was very much against capital punishment, which is killing a convicted felon. But he was very much against that. He was against capital punishment. And when we bring up the examples, like, well, you just ordered chicken, which if we make a little comparison here, no, it's different. It's different. They are protecting that sense of self, which we all like to think that we are right, me included. But the more we meditate, and I'm not saying like you meditate once, but I mean year after year and after year, you start unraveling some of the ego, the BS that wraps up around This is who I am. This is my culture. This is my identity, whether that is racial or political. All these identities get wrapped up, and we start seeing through that. And this is why having a piercing mindfulness helps us to think, you know, I've been doing this a long time and I see what's going on up here. Approximately 90% of it, jetsam and flotsam. I'm relatively well educated. I'm a relatively bright person. But yet when I look up there, I'm like, it's what do you would you shut up? It's just stuff going on and on. And I've been aware of this for a long time. And I see, judgments pop up. This person, I don't like her hair. This guy, he's overweight. I don't like his shirt, and he drives too slow. It's like, would you just shut up? Because none of that is true. When we make the external comparison to what we see in the media, I would say about 90% of it is lies and or propaganda, which is why I'm a very strong advocate to greatly decrease the amount of media that we take in, whether it's the networks or the legacy media systems or the more modern ones, the friend connectivity types of things or the video channel types of things. 90%, and even now, most of it's becoming AI, or a very large percentage, growing, escalating very rapidly, is not even real humans speaking or acting or creating the content. And even in the 20 years that the internet has provided real human content, that which we really have access to, lies and propaganda. It takes so much time to sift through all of that. And the same is true for the human mind. If we have not taken either a spiritual path or a deeply psychological reprogramming or unprogramming or removing of indoctrination, we're just going to be, we're slaves, psychological slaves or cultural slaves, slaves to the system, slaves to materialism, slaves to what our grandparents taught our parents taught us. So spiritual awakening, as you said really well a couple of minutes ago, it's breaking that conditioning. And I think when we first started talking, when I said, well, I left the United States in June of '91, amidst a lot of war going on and disenchantment with the way all of my colleagues were supportive of that. It's like, I don't care if you're liberal or conservative, dropping bombs on people's weddings that had nothing to do with anything. We need to be very patient. And again, this is why the meditation practice, or let me call it in non-spiritual terms, the practice of looking within and having a much more calm mind, creating much more space within ourselves. It helps us to see through whether it's propaganda or it's brainwashing or enculturalization.
Yeah, the media that you're talking about that is propaganda, I think that there is, and brainwashing, completely agree with you. And I look back and I go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I fell for that. You know, I can't believe, 20 years ago I fell for that. I can see it now. It's propaganda. But the other aspect of it that you also mentioned in your book is just the frenetic nature of it, like the video games and I noticed somewhere in, I think it was the 90s. Well, it gradually changed, but then suddenly, like the news that I grew up with was like Walter Cronkite was just like one man talking, and and that's the way it is. And then it got to this place with all these there's a anchor, and then there's a film, some video, and then there's a banner here, and then there's a banner up here, and it was this like frenetic, constant stimulation. And no one today would have any sense that the news, 50 years ago was something different. To them, it's always been this kind of frenetic, frantic thing that messes with our brains, I think. It's overly stimulates us, and it completely pulls us out of ourselves if we have any inclination at all to go inside. Now we're latching on to this and that and this and that because our attention is being distracted and pulled in. So that's the other aspect of media.
Yes, what you say is very powerful. And for a younger generation, it's like, well, why talk about the 60s and 70s and 80s? That's way past. Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about the modern era. I was waiting for a train recently, and I was watching. It was one of these big, entire building types of video screens, and I started counting that the image changed one, and it was jumping from totally disparate topics. It's like, here's a racehorse, and here's downhill skiing. Here's a race car. Here's a famous watch brand, and that might be 3 or 4 seconds. 1 second, change of topic, change of topic, change of topic. We cannot possibly sift through all of that. Now, when I go to my teaching sessions, I teach people to be looking within, and I often people say, "Well, I have some meditation practice." So I say, "Well, how much time do you spend meditating each day?" Well, 5 or 10 minutes every day, uh, once or twice a week. Like, oh, well, how much time do you spend using social media? And I give them time to think about things. So I slow down. How much time do you spend on social media on an average day? How much time do you spend maybe with television or watching movies on an average day? Statistically, the answer is about 3 hours and 3 hours. 3 hours with social media types of things, 3 hours with television type things, depending on one's generation and life situation. So it's somewhere between 3 and 6 hours of just every second or every 2 seconds, the image is changing. But people have gotten used to that. So when we slow down and I take a pause like this, people say, this guy talks too slowly. It's like, no, you listen too quickly. It's because their minds are like this. Meditation would seem to be impossible because our brains have been wired over the last 30 years or so. It has become so quick that images have gone from 10 seconds to 5 seconds, and now a split second. And we notice the same phenomenon with various social media platforms. It used to be you could watch an hour-long interview. Nobody stays for an hour, so they have to be cut into 5-minute pieces. You know where
I
I'm
do
going,
know.
right? And then it's 1 minute. And when you see the statistics, when you do analytics on how long people watch, I do a 59-second short, and people watch, 40 seconds. And I'm like, yay, they watched me for 40 seconds. So somehow, as a content creator or as a teacher, I have to be able to explain everything in the universe in 40 seconds. So come back to a mindfulness practice or a meditation practice or contemplative practice or prayer, which all have that similarity, is we're looking within, we are quieting the mind, we're developing a deeper, richer inner experience, and this contributes to our well-being and to the people around us.
Uh, Tom, where do you think we're headed? I can't help but think that all of this programming that's been happening the last 30 years is not intentional. It may not be, it may just be human evolution, but it does seem like we're really being dumbed down in a lot of ways and lured into not going inside because when we go inside, it's expansive and eternal and it's not dependent on any of the material forces out there. And so I feel like when we go in on the inner journey, we become very powerful in our own sense of our true self. And that the luring is possibly on purpose by the powers out there. So that's one thing that I'm interested in if you agree with me on that or not. And the other thing is then where do you think we're headed? Do you think that we're headed towards this material transhumanism that seems we're being we're kind of being put in the chute, like in the slaughterhouse, we're put in the chute that we can't get out? Or do you think that there's a resurgence of the natural going back and stepping back and taking my shoes off and walking on the dirt and recognizing that everything around me is alive and an ultimate rejection of that? Or do you think it's somewhere in between?
I would probably say this, Carol. It's probably both. That the masses, and let's just throw a number at that, 80 to 90% of the people are just going to follow the system, either for economic reasons or cultural reasons, or that's just how that person is. They're going to watch the television. They're going to eat the animal product. They're going to work 8, 9, 10-hour days, a couple of hours in traffic. They want some quick food and they want entertainment. And there's not much we can do to wake up that kind of a person. And they would not, they say, that's my life. That's what I want to do. Okay. And then there are another circle of people who want something different. And so everybody who comes to me, I do what's called Reiki, health, and spirituality. And it's based on all the things I've put in the book. And the book is based on the last 20 some years of teaching of all the things that are controlling us. And a lot of it, we do it ourselves. We turn on the video channel, we turn on the social media channel, or we go to that old restaurant. We continue repeating patterns. But yet when people come to me, they're yearning for something. Something is lacking. Either it's physical illness. I have somebody coming next week. She and her mother both have had cancer. So they're looking within for deeper solutions. I saw a young man today from Germany, and his stress was just like off the charts. And I taught him one thing in 3 hours. We did some healing work, hands on, but also just getting us like, watch yourself breathing. And it was revolutionary. And he literally, and like he'd never noticed that he was breathing before. Bright guy, nice guy, but so troubled because there was just so much going on in his head and in the society from where he comes. He works in IT, so there's so much information. So he called out, he asked me for some help. So I gave him my energy and some guidance. But the simplest of meditation practices, every time you see your mind wandering, take a deep breath. And if you get one moment of peace, I know the thoughts are going to come back again, but you bring your mind back again. And you get that one moment of peace. Compare this to the world of media, which is all controlled by gigantic corporations. Call them the big five without naming names. We all know who I'm talking about. There are 5 big media corporations. There are 5 big internet-based corporations. In the same way, there are 5 big people who produce pharmaceuticals of some kind or food of some kind, the banking of some kind. There's the big 5, depending on the industry. And they control the vast majority of information in our world. And it's very profitable to have people work all day and come home too tired to even think about, frying up some broccoli and getting some tahini and actually figuring out what tahini is and how do you make baba ganoush or hummus. Like, what are you talking about? It's simple stuff. You throw some chickpeas in a blender and boom, you've got hummus. You don't have to go kill a rabbit or kill a chicken to do it. You take some peas and you soften them up and go. So some people are on this path of walking on the earth and finding their inner peace. But so often those same people are continuing to eat animals and not seeing the contradiction. And this is where I spend most of my time teaching, my writing time, my video time, is trying to get people to see this connection. That if you're spiritual and you're paying people to kill animals, but people, especially in the culture where I'm at here in Thailand, with all due respect, they will simply say, I did not kill the animal. Like,
Yeah,
oh, so therefore you're innocent. I see. I see. If
yeah.
we were to take this to a court of law and I said, I did not kill that chicken, the prosecutor would just be laughing. It's like, oh, yeah, but you paid this kid over here to do it. The chicken was dead when I got into the restaurant. You've heard
Yeah,
stuff like this, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's no culpability whatsoever because you would have to face the fact of basically, I am a killer. I challenge my reader in the book when we get into the process far enough. And I say it with people in person when I made a connection. I'll say, okay, the bathroom's right over there. Go in the bathroom, you close the door, you do your business. Then look in the mirror. And this is being, again, a bit hyperbolic, but raise your right hand or put your hand on your heart. Look yourself in the eye and say, I eat dead animals. I pay people who kill animals and then flavor them up and give it to me. And I then eat that corpse. And I support this with my money, with my votes, psychologically, spiritually. My religious leaders all support this. I eat dead animals, and I'm okay with that. I pay people to kill animals, and I'm okay with that. And if the person has the wherewithal to do that, I go, okay. I
Yeah, at
don't
least
know
you're
if
being honest.
anybody, yes, yes, it's like, okay, let's talk about something else.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't know if anybody's ever taken me up on that challenge, but it's
yeah,
sort of a showstopper. It's like, go
yeah.
ahead, put your hand on your heart and say it. I eat dead animals, and I'm okay with that. I pay people to kill innocent animals, and I'm okay with
And some people would be okay with that, and
that.
many, many,
Yes,
many, many people would not be okay with that. So it's important to face what is your value and who are you? Who do you think you are? Yeah. And I think I want to make a couple points here. One is that it's very easy to say, well, we all do harm. I mean, it's very you can't live without doing harm. I was driving down the interstate yesterday, and I don't know what flew into my windshield. I don't know if it was a bird or if it was a big moth, but something flew into my windshield, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I. And so, we do cause harm just by living. And I think that the thing is not that we don't do any harm, but that we consciously do the most we can to do the least harm possible. So we kind of give ourselves permission for these times where, I accidentally did this, or this thing flew into me, or, I'm driving at night and there's moths everywhere. It's so I just want to make that distinction because I don't think we're definitely not perfect people. We're just doing our best to be conscious with other lives. Would you agree with that?
absolutely, Carol. That's a very good point. That and some people will blame a vegan. It's like, you ate a carrot, or there are insects on your organic fruit, and they get killed in the process. When people start going on that, they are actually being defensive.
Yeah.
What we can do is say we create the minimum amount of harm to beings of any nature, and we take every opportunity to help other beings. So how many times have we have a weird thing out here. Maybe you get this at home. Birds fly into our windows, and we hear boom, and like, oh God, your heart just drops. And I go out. I'm no veterinarian, but I'll protect that bird. I'll put it somewhere no cats will be able to get it, and I'll pick it up and I'll hold my hands with love and kindness, and I set her down and I keep an eye on her. And 50-50, she flies away. Wow. And I've had cases where we get frogs in our house and they can't get back out. And I find them all shriveled up. Let me do my shriveled frog imitation.
Aw.
I put them in. I put them in a saucer of water with just like an eighth inch of water to try and read. They're still alive, but they can't move. And I set them, and within an hour or two, 50-50, they survive. But also purposefully going to restaurants that don't serve animal products. And I've had over the years people invite me to a restaurant and say, "Hey, Tom, they have vegan options." To me, that's a red flag that says, "Oh, but the owner also kills animals, sells the dead bodies, and charges you a premium price for obscuring the fact of what a dead cow would really taste like. So we're going to spice it up in this way." So I won't even go in that type of a restaurant. I won't support that proprietor. And I simply tell my associate, whether it's a student or a friend, I'm not comfortable sitting in a restaurant eating my green curry or my pineapple fried rice, and the person next to me is eating parts of a dead animal. I'm not comfortable with them. And people are, without exceptions, like, "Okay, you choose a place." And I go, "Great," because we have this great vegan pizza place. We have a great Chinese place, a great Thai place, great Indian place, a great Israeli place. There's so many options, especially in the larger cities. If somebody's in the middle of nowhere, okay, we'll have to talk about the details. But if you're in Chicago or Milwaukee or New York, San Fran, LA, Arizona, Phoenix, you're in a big city. There's a million to 10 million people. There are so many vegan options, you can't make up your mind. So doing minimal violence against animals and optimum representing all of these animals who are being killed. And that's where vegan advocacy comes in, which is an important part of our journey, is speaking up for the innocent.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a real challenge to discern that when it's a good time or not. We've come up in our hour, but I want to ask you, do you think that ultimately people who are on the spiritual path ultimately at some point face this question, and that and that giving up the uh, the domination of animals that we culturally find acceptable is ultimately part of the spiritual path?
I have to say with a very heavy heart that one of my best friends died a little over 2 years ago. And we had a falling out around 2017 on this topic. And he was a very spiritual guy, a brilliant guy, a great friend, about 10 years older than me. And we worked together like magic when we ran courses together. But when it came to the eating of animals, he just straight out says, "I'm teaching propaganda." And I would respond, "I'm speaking up for the rights of innocent beings." And I'm very, very sad to say that this friend passed away in May of 23 from intestinal cancer. Breaks my heart because he was my mentor. He was just great friend and a great mentor, but he never changed.
Hmm.
And another very, very good friend, a really tuned in guy. This friend died in April of 2015. And we had lunch. I can see it. I can tell you the Terminal 21 at Asok intersection, Central Bangkok, fourth floor, Sunshine Taco, and I had vegan, and this beloved friend of mine had a burger during the course of his chemotherapy. And it breaks my heart. I couldn't say anything. He was 10 years my senior, and the man's been going through chemo for a certain number of months. And he never saw it in spiritual terms. He never saw it in physical terms. His doctor, in both cases, these gentlemen, uh, very close to 70 years of age, their doctors never told them, it's like, "Yeah, you're on chemo, you should probably have a really super healthy clean diet." And spiritually, neither one of them. There are, everybody's different, so it's hard to generalize what each person's journey is going to be like. I have a feeling most people will deny it to the end. But there are some people who come to me who've had cancer and they've had to look inside and think, how did I get cancer in my body? And they become much more introspective, and there's great hope. So it kind of sucks that people have to get cancer and have half of their colon removed to realize, maybe there's something wrong with the things that I eat.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very, very challenging. We can try to inspire everybody who wants to be inspired. And everybody else, we have to let people go. We cannot just tell people what to do. We can inspire people to say, this is healthy. This prevents the disease or it reverses disease. And it's the most peaceful thing we can do for other beings and for the environment.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
And I
mm,
I I love the way in your book you kind of ease people into it and you're very kind and very gentle with people. There's the readers. There's no telling anybody anything. You present facts from time to time, but most of it's kind of a invitation, I think. And I think it's really
mm.
a lovely way to communicate the message is to invite people on this journey. First to begin to go inside with the meditation and then begin to cut out some of the media addictions that we have and then kind of consider our values and who we are. So you really bring people on a really pleasant journey, I think, throughout your book. And I wanted to say that. And I wanted to, before I close, I wanted to see if you had anything else that you wanted to share that maybe I didn't cover.
Well, we've covered a lot of topics. Um, Most of my work now concerns helping people find this book and to practice it. But it's not a book for reading, it's a book for practicing. So I met some young friends in Bangkok recently. He was 35-ish, and he really liked my book. He read the whole thing. The book is available in Thai language also, and most of my work is with Thai people. So we're talking, and he started asking questions. I go, "You read the book, but you didn't practice it. The point is not to get to page 320. The point is you read and you practice." And so if you recall from early chapters, I'll suggest make your evening meal plant-based. You don't have to become a vegan overnight. I don't even recommend that. Just make your evening meal plant-based. With commitment, from now on, my evening meals are plant-based. That's how I live. And I meditate every day as long as I can, plus 5 minutes. So we're doing it, and you get this synergy of change your diet, cut down on your social media by a third. At that stage of the book, cut back by a third, increase your meditation, and exercise too, which we haven't talked on today. We don't really have time for that. But just in one sentence, exercise is a very important part of our emotional and spiritual development. So I'm encouraging people to get outside, get some sunshine, get some fresh air, then sit down and meditate, then have a plant-based meal, and you will see benefits mentally, physically. The systems start changing, the insights start coming. So I don't have to tell people what to do. People will see that from the inside. I feel better when I exercise. I feel better when I meditate. When I have a plant-based meal, I sleep better. My bowels move more smoothly, and my morning meditation is more calm. And so the proof is in the experience, not because the author told you so. Prove it to yourself.
I love that. I love your whole approach because it is gentle. And I love that you're not like change overnight, stop doing what you're doing. It's very, very gradual and it's a very mindful approach. So thank you, Tom, so much for sharing with us today, for sharing your book and for bringing the connection of health and spirituality and the animals all together. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Carol. And thank you for taking the time with the technological glitches that we faced before we recorded. It's like, be very patient because, I'm not a 23-year-old techie. It's like, So we
Uh,
spent some time on technology, but now we've had this conversation. We've had a chance to share, and hopefully, with our work together, we can inspire other people either through this video or through reading the book, practicing the book. We can create more peace on an individual basis by making these changes.
I agree, and I do have hope because you changed, I changed, a lot of
Sure.
us have been immersed in the material and the media and all that stuff, and that we woke up to something. So I think there's a great
Yeah.
awakening happening, and I'm very
Yes.
optimistic about it. If you're a person out there who is awakening, God bless you on your journey. And I'm so grateful that we've all joined here together. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, all my listeners. And I now close the Spiritual Forum.